this. Just add some this. Just add some this. Hello. Just some this. Just add some this. Very overdue update video. Hello, and welcome to this overdue video update about the uTape scrubber. There's a lot to go through, and I'm quite excited to say, I think I'm done. I think I've done it. I think it worked. So, as people might have seen, I've been quite busy on YouTube lately making loads of kind of extra videos about this stuff. Yeah, because there's a load of different avenues I wanted to explore, different types of tape cassettes. Testing formulations. Using full-size cassettes. Using loops with tape heads in as well, to make kind of like a weird lo-fi delay. There's more going on in the system at the moment. You can see all these extra expanders. I'll talk about that later, because that's kind of how I decided I was finished. So we've got U-loops coming up, which are now available on my website. I sent out one of these with every single module and a load of replacements. It's easy to do, but now you can, if you want to have a few extra cassettes, that's possible. But in experimenting with these, I realised I really wanted to add some bearings to them, make them smooth. So there's a video about U-loops Plus, which are going to be available next year. Also been experimenting with putting tape heads in.
Which targeted civil society, requiring any organization receiving more than 20% of its funding.
Through this process, it kind of led me to a conclusion that although I felt I was done, you know, with the last update video, there's always room for manoeuvre with tape. Like I wanted to carry on working on this circuit, even though, you know, I've got to call it a day for kind of the project. There's been so many versions that I need to simplify it. So I'll explain a little bit about that later. There's going to be the possibility of kind of like updating to the final version, which is identical to the version I showed in the last video, with the updates to the click and the new final record circuit, but I've kind of, a bit like the tape sampler, let me just grab one. I've tapped into a load of points in the circuit and added breakout points. So this is what it looks like now, the final version, as anyone who ever worked on Ableton knows. So yeah, you can see all these new extra expander ports. There's 3 jumpers which I've added, and they normalize the circuit back to that, you know, last version. But if you remove them, then you have the option of kind of going out of the circuit, almost like a send and return, if you think about it like that. Or it's a point for the feedback resistor on a gain circuit. So what's going to be great about this for people who are interested in DIY is that for all of this, there's the possibility of doing quite simple, you know, passive DIY kind of expanders to this. As I said, from playing with full-size cassettes and kind of doing some recordings, people will see that. I also noticed, you know, that as well from making all of these different test tapes with different formulations, so there's quite, you know, a bit of variation with different types of tape and different speeds, you know, and regarding the levels. So it made sense to kind of add some controls over the input level for the recording. So you can see my voice on the left here, and if we turn that down, the audio still goes through the tape scrubber, but now it's not being applied to the record circuit. So this gives us the option to choose how much we're going to apply to the record circuit. There's also a send and return. So I think that all of this is going to need another video, but I think I'll just gloss over them kind of quickly. You know, I thought inputs level control was a good idea. Output level control for the gain of the playback. And again, this at the simplest could be just a pot, but in its more complex form it could even be a send and return, or you could have I was thinking about diode clipping kind of stages, because yeah, all sorts of options, maybe a VCA there. And I created a expander which gives us high-low gates depending on the mode. So the advantage of that is this is way too much to go and demo right now, but I'll make a video on each one of these separately and explain kind of what's going on. But with that one, I've really been enjoying having the record gate trigger a one shot on the U-plat, and then I could have some mush on the tape loop and just kind of choose where I wanted to add a one shot or a kick drum, and that just worked great. I've also added the option for muting the audio through for parallel processing, because you might not always want to hear whatever you're recording to the, you know, on the mix. Yeah, as well as that, bias level control, and I've found a way to CV control that, and I want to make a full series of videos about DIYing each of these, everything from the very simple passive utilities like you can see in front of us to these more complex ideas, because this is really leading me to a point where kind of like when I was watching Mylar Melody's journey with his techno system, I now want to build a system around the uTape scrubber. So that's kind of what to expect with this. There's more work to be done, but by adding these headers and these expander ports, everything I can think of that I would want to do within the module, because that's what it all comes down to. What options do I want in this module that I can't do elsewhere in Eurorack? You know, I could put a load of level controls, VCAs and all sorts in here, but why not just have a send and return? There's another module in Eurorack that's going to act as a better filter, for example, for the pre-emphasis EQing, or there might be a better, you know, VCA with more compression control than I can add in this space. So, you know, let this be modular. I think it really comes back to that for the uTape scrubber. So there's quite a bit going on here. We've got a bias level control on the left. We've got a input level control with send and return. We've got VU meters, level control for the output of the playback circuit, and there's a muting switch for the audio through, and then gates depending on what mode we're in. Some of this isn't wired up and finished yet, but it's more kind of proof of concept that kind of, yeah, comfortable. What I've got, but yeah, I feel like it's kind of getting there. It's, you know, the project's coming to a close now. So anyone who's waiting for their build, good news is this is what you're going to be getting. This is a whole different thing to making, you know, any other Eurorack module that I make. There's a lot that goes in behind the back end, whether it's just sourcing the tape machines, disassembling them, you know, sorting them out into ones that are possible to use in these, then modifying the deck, sourcing these cassettes. Everything has turned into, you know, a much bigger kind of project than I ever realised. And it's been, you know, this kind of process, and I really appreciate people kind of supporting me through this, because At each stage I've done the best I can, and I've always learned, from it and wanted to make it better. I mean, I can show you the first one now, V1, which was just a really lo-fi kind of hacky prototype made out of this PWM controller board and some bits from the uTape one uTape rack, and there was no active record circuit, but I really liked the way it sounded. I've actually got one just set up here next to the system, and I guess I could show that kind of working. And yeah, as part of this, we'll just grab one of these uLoops Plus. The advantage of these is they go smoothly forwards and backwards. So that's the normal direction. So these V1s, the cool thing was that the playback circuit was done at this point, although other things messed it up later on in subsequent versions, but that was all my doing. Anyway, and so yeah, you can hear these new bearing versions are really smooth, but the record circuit on this was interesting. Send that straight into the uTape scrubber. Even the V1 had this kind of through audio. And then we're going to just add some of this on top. Wow. Okay. So it was possible to record with them, but you ended up with this kind of really grungy version, and I like that. It's okay signs on it, but if we look at the back, I mean, I hand drilled all these panels. I just had these panels lying around for kind of like another idea, and I ended up, well, originally they were going to have just the dictaphone on the front, but then I used parts of the one uTape rack and this other motor controller, which was going to be for a kind of full-size cassette machine, which unfortunately was so noisy it was unusable. The next version added a active record circuit, and they looked like these, which weren't so hacky, but still I was getting some issues. It seems like everything with tape, it's always a compromise. The things that I did to make it better made something else worse. So yeah, pushing the record circuit to sound better meant that started to get click issues. I mean, there's a lot of switching going on this. This manual switch is essentially swapping and making and breaking 3 different circuits. There's a bit of a record circuit and this AC biasing, and this was done in the style of a WEM copycat. And then I learnt from this that the circuit was much better, but it could still be pushed further. And so there's a lot going on in it. Anyway, after that I carried on, and we had a version which I never sent out to anyone, where I had improved the record circuit, incorporated what I was using in the one uTape rack, but also this muting circuit, and that got rid of most of the click, enough so I could actually do a demo video with it and not wince, and then and that's what led to the one we saw in the last video, which looked a bit like this. With the new kind of Toshiba IC that I'm using from a vintage kind of tape machine, and then yeah, the final version brings us to that with some headers on. So I hope that makes sense for everyone. I'm quite excited by the possibility of going back to kind of the DIY world with this. Thankfully Funk still stock my V1 tape sampler, and yeah, I've been chatting with those guys about it. I want there to be a DIY tape machine available, and I kind of like the idea of with this also, people will be able to buy this unit, but then you can start to think about how do you want to make this into your own instrument. There's some other stuff going on in the background. You might notice I was using down here. Some new touch controllers, which I'm going to be releasing very soon. There's also a tape sampler, which I can't wait to set out into the world, start mangling noise beyond sounds beyond all recognition. So yeah, more videos to come, and hopefully your uTape scrubber will be with you soon. I'm doing my best. It's just me on my own, but I think yeah, we're a bit I'm a bit behind time now, behind when they should be out, but the fact that we've got to the final version, and I know what I'm not going to be working on developing the circuit anymore. I'm going to finish off building everybody's, and then the fact that these expander ports are kind of there, and that I've tested them just with these passive kind of DIY modules that I've built, proves it's like a proof of concept that it will be possible to then take this tape machine to the next level. I mean, I've got something in my hand that I never really thought would exist, and it's all been because of everybody's support as well. Taking those deposits meant that I was able to work on this and really focus in a way that I just wouldn't have been able to. So what I'd like to do for everyone is make it possible for you to upgrade. This version is going to be 350, and I think I've got to make it so that there's a few less loops, because they just take me so long to make, and I think everyone can have a go at making their own loops as well. But yeah, I think that's going to be possible in the new year for people if they want to start messaging me and asking, but you'll just have to pay the price difference and then any shipping, of course, and then yeah, I'll swap your old one for this final version, and I think I could take this circuit and the motor controls and the record and the playback, and start to incorporate them into other tape machines which are going to have different characters. So yeah, I hope this has been relatively interesting, and I'll be in touch with everyone who's waiting for their uTape scrubber shortly, as I now have the final boards and I'm just building them up with your ETA. So yeah, thanks for checking this out, and any questions, please leave them below and I'll get back to you. I will be making a frequently asked questions page about the uTape scrubber, so if you have any of those, please leave them below. Even if I don't get back to you there, I will kind of send a link later on and make sure that those are all included in the description. So until next time, peace, love and tape loops, and keep experimenting. Thank you. Bye.